This new story about survival during the apocalypse begins like many others with betrayal. The main character of this story is named Zhang Xiaoyong, and now he is in a hanging state. Literally, he's hanging right above a cage full of bloodthirsty zombies. And his ex-girlfriend is laughing and mocking him, reminding that all his friends are dead, but he may not worry, soon his meaningless life will also end and he can join his friends. Thinking back on what happened, Xiaoyong couldn't forgive himself for letting it all happen. It was all his fault, or rather it was his fault for trusting this evil woman who deserved a miserable death. That's who the real villain here is. But for her, all the threats of our hero were not scary at all. She found herself a boyfriend stronger and richer and now asked him to deal with this garbage. The fat man was not at all against helping, and offered to torture Zhang Xiaoyong slowly so that the girl could enjoy the sight and let out her anger before pressing the button. The fat man mockingly thanked Xiaoyong for all his supplies. Thanks to his generosity, they would be able to live comfortably for a few months. That was the end of the conversation, and Xiaoyong fell right into the zombie cage. For these insane creatures, there was no difference in what to attack. Fresh flesh was the only thing they desired in this world. The bound Xiaoyong could only scream in pain and dreamed that if he had a second chance to live his life again, he would make his ex-girlfriend Keej Jing and Fatty Li Shuang pay for what they had done. But suddenly it was as if Xiaoyong woke up and heard Keej Jing's nasty, disgusting voice demanding an explanation. She wanted to know why it was that he still hadn't put her name on the house deeds. Does he not love her at all? Xiaoyong meanwhile was trying to come to his senses and realize what was going on. Had he been reborn in the time before the apocalypse in his past life, he was deceived by Chu Jing. Not only did she swindle away the inheritance his parents left him, but he also ended up homeless. Later the apocalypse began and a global catastrophe turned people into zombies, plunging the entire world into chaos. But even in the midst of this chaos, Xiaoyong was not confused and with the help of friends managed to survive, and after some wandering built a safe zone in it. They could not be afraid of zombies, and thanks to good supplies they could live there for months. That's when Qing appeared again. She pretended to be a desperate person who was looking for shelter, and she won Xiaoyong's sympathy again. Yes, it was stupid and he realized it himself now. The very next night she opened the gates of the safe zone to the enemies who had long dreamed of destroying them. Now this same traitorous woman was not calming down and demanded 400,000 bride price. In addition to the house if he wanted to marry her. She behaved the same as always, confident that Zhang was enchanted by her beauty and couldn't see her rotten character. But this time it will be different. He won't let this evil thing twist him around. However, he needs to act carefully. Being overly impulsive could hurt him. Now Queen gave him a week's time to do what she demanded, otherwise the wedding would be cancelled. At this Xiaoyong threw her out of the house and assured her that he understood Queen was not used to such an attitude and couldn't understand what was going on. Since when had her slave Xiaoyong become so assertive? Had he changed his mind about being her servant now that he was rid of that annoying traitor? He could look around. There was only a month left before the apocalypse began and Xiaoyong had to start preparing immediately or else it would be too late. Later suddenly he received a notification. Like in some kind of game, he received a system mission. After activating the apocalypse system, the mission had a very common name: Apocalypse Preparation. To complete it he needed to own a piece of land and prepare a year's stock of supplies. For completing it Xiaoyong could get 10 points which he could exchange for rewards in the system store. Our hero was pleasantly surprised by such a bonus. The system missions and rewards for their completion. What else is needed for happiness? Just what could be bought in the system store? Xiaoyong did not know. Mostly there were loot boxes and some potions, for example, to improve physical strength. But from all this our hero was distracted by his stomach grumbling and demanding a proper meal. Xiaoyong had almost forgotten how in his previous life he was skimping and saving every penny to gather Chu Jing's bride price, which left him malnourished. Now he was not going to limit himself and decided to have a fancy dinner delivered in a month's time. Zombies would be everywhere and as long as good food is available, he should take advantage of it. A few hours later the delivery arrived. Xiaoyong would never have allowed himself such a legendary Michelin 3-star takeaway before. He decided to start by tasting what a 300 unbraised pork tasted like. After what he ate during the apocalypse, it was divine and just too good to be true. Our hero didn't stop there and went into food devourer mode. His appetite was quite good and soon he was almost done. Just at this moment the phone rang when Xia Chu Jing's friend was calling, which meant that she had already managed to complain to her. Xiaoyong answered the phone and immediately regretted it. A shout immediately came from the phone. Xia demanding to explain how dare he treat Chu Jing like that. She just wanted him to prove his love. If he can't give her his property, then how can he say he loves her? Actually Chu Jing was just testing him a little and he failed the test, but if he brings the house deeds and $1 million in cash as an apology, then Wuya will try to help him convince Chu Jing that it was just a misunderstanding. If he doesn't, he can expect a breakup. After such a long speech, our hero simply ran out of patience. Who does she think she is to test him with an attitude like that? She should just get lost. Wuya still tried to object, but Xiaoyong just ended the call. He was already fed up with these money-hungry girls. He didn't care about them now. The most important thing was to find and buy a suitable piece of land. There he could build the strongest fortress, which would not only be easy to defend but also close to a source of water and forest. The next morning he arrived at the real estate agency. He was immediately greeted by a consultant and asked if he had come to rent or buy a house. Xayong assured her that it was neither. He was here for something more valuable. Suddenly a real estate sales manager came up behind them and ordered the consultant Zhang to go and help carry the boxes. They received a big shipment of toilet paper today. She tried to explain that she had a customer, but it was no use. Manager Ju didn't see Xiaoyong as a customer at all. He even scolded his subordinate for forgetting everything he taught her. Convinced that you can't be a real estate agent without flair, he sent her to work in the backyard and told our hero that such a broke loser in cheap clothes probably cannot even afford to buy a toilet, so he can't even be called a customer. This arrogant attitude annoyed our hero, and he was going to teach this manager a lesson. To start with, Xiaoyong asked him to repeat what he just said and explain how dare he look down on the others. Manager Ji was not going to back down. Confident in his power, he proudly declared that he was a man who looks down on dogs like our hero. If he could buy himself at least a toilet, he would eat shit on live stream. One look at Xiaoyong was enough to realize that the manager would soon regret about his words. Well, since the manager said so himself, Xiaoyong advised him to make sure he would find some fresh steaming ones later. After all, our hero didn't come here today to rent or sell a house but to buy land. All the customers around him were shocked. It was the first time they had seen someone rich enough to buy land. In that case, Miss Chang invited him to sit down so she could give him a detailed introduction. Manager Ju watched all this with gritted teeth, confident that anyone could talk. But when it came to payment, he didn't believe that Xiaoyong would be able to pay. Xa Ning provided our hero all the pieces of land available for purchase. He could view them while she would explain everything, but for our hero none of that was necessary. He knew exactly what he wanted. Xiaoyong was going to name his requirements and let her see if they had anything suitable. Xiaoyong wanted the land to be near mountains and water, preferably with running water. It would be ideal to have factories or large buildings on the land. To find something suitable, Shang needed a little time, but then Manager Ju came from behind again. He seemed to have a hobby of approaching from behind. He thought that the piece of land that fit all the requirements is located in the Eastern District. Zhang thought it was a bad idea. That place was the T-City land. There were many unfinished factories and pending projects there. Such property couldn't be sold to customers. Manager Ju didn't think so. He still hadn't seen any customers here. And this loser with such high demands, in his opinion, was not here to buy land but to make trouble. Xiaoyong didn't really care where the land was located as long as it met his requirements. Incomplete factories were also not a problem, even on the contrary an advantage. After looking at the details, our hero decided that it was exactly what he needed. With the barbed wire, this place would be easy to defend and unfinished factories would save a lot of money and time on construction, so he agreed to buy this land. He was ready to sign the contract now and pay for the purchase. Shang was shocked. She couldn't believe that someone in his right mind was going to buy this land with unfinished factories, but still Xiaoyong stood firm and even asked her to do it quickly because someone here couldn't wait to eat fresh poop soon enough. Manager Ju held the check in his hands and couldn't believe it was possible this ragamuffin was able to pay 300,000 when for a land with abandoned factories. This was just crazy to him. Xiaoyong reminded him before he left that he had made the payment, and now it was his turn to perform. While Ju is enjoying the process, Xiaoyong will send him a donation in super chat so that he won't be so offended. The other customers started encouraging the fat manager to hurry up because they had already started the stream. One just had a stomach that didn't feel good, but he promised that it would at least be fresh. Thus Xiaoyong had completed the first step of the system task. Now it was time to get to the second one. Xia Yun had spent all the money to buy the land, and now he needed to figure out how to get money to accumulate supplies. When he was leaving the real estate agency, he was by an old acquaintance, Li Shuang, and he immediately wondered what our hero was doing here. However, all these questions flew out of his head when he saw what was going on inside. The staff and customers were forcing Manager Ju to keep his promise while he was desperately asking for help and how much he didn't want to eat poop. Meanwhile, Keej Jing was painting her nails and enjoying life carefree. She got a call from Liang and asked if she knew that Xiaoyong had come to the real estate company to buy land. Of course she didn't know and was shocked at where he got so much money from. Lechong clarified that Xiaoyong had paid 300,000 on probably the bride price money he saved. Now she was just furious that that bastard dared to use her money. Lechong advised her to calm down and not get mad but rather go find Xiaoyong and ask him what was going on, but she was blinded by anger. She wasn't going to ask him anything. That bastard was using her money and she was going to expose him today. In the meantime our hero had his own worries. Buying supplies and building a base required a lot of money to be found. All his peaceful musings were interrupted by a frantic knock on the door. It was Chu Jing along with her sister. She was still furious that he dared to spend her money. Xiaoyong still couldn't understand what she was talking about. Qing on the other hand continued as she thought to expose him that he used the bride price money to buy land. That money belonged to her, and since he bought the land with it, it also belonged to her. Xiaoyong didn't even know how to respond to this crazy woman's claims. He finally decided to explain things to her in a way that even a dumbass like her would understand. He has a lot of money but he's not going to spend a single cent on her. Besides he knows about her affairs with Liang. Qing didn't understand what was going on and how he even knew about her and Liang, her sister. Seeing where things were going, suggested to everyone to calm down and solve this little misunderstanding between a couple, but Xiaoyong was not going to waste his precious time on these two. There is no misunderstanding here. Qing is not his girlfriend but a pathetic doormat of that old fatty Liang. Right after that he slammed the door in her face and told her to get lost. Just looking at her already annoys him. Chu Jing still couldn't understand how he knew she and Liang had always been very careful when renting rooms. Her sister didn't know about them either and didn't understand why her sister didn't share such important information with her up front. Is she really dating that middle-aged man? Qing assured that it was nothing serious. They had just rented rooms a few times in such an out-of-control situation. They had no choice but to go home and come up with a new plan. That's all they could do since her sister screwed up with Xiaoyong. Wuya herself was now not going to hold back and wanted to charm Xiaoyong. After all, they are good sisters. The next day. Thanks for watching my video and like and subscribe please, for it gives us motivation to make more videos like this. Thank you.